people awoke in shock and horror on February 24, 2022, as news of Russia's invasion of Ukraine spread. The Formula One world was not immune to this reality, with the paddock speaking out on the issue in unison. The cancellation of the Sochi Grand Prix was the first item on the agenda, but many also focused on the Russian driver Nikita Mazepin, who was driving for Haas at the time. Many pointed to the sponsor he brought with him, as well as his father's connections to the Kremlin, all factors that led in his eventual dismissal from the team. Mazepin then attempted to reclaim his seat, which in the end resulted in a lawsuit that is still ongoing. So, what is the current situation, and what was the true reason for Mazepin's expulsion? Stick around to the end of the video to find out. Uralkali, Mazepin's sponsor, was the first issue for Haas. The fertilizer producer and exporter company was owned by Uralkali, which is chaired and partially owned by Nikita's father, Dmitry Mazepin, a Russian oligarch. The ruble's depreciation, pressure to stop doing business with Russia, and Mazepin's family's long history of close ties with Vladimir Putin prompted the initial discussion of dropping the firm as a sponsor. Then there were the sanctions, which could further complicate matters by potentially making any legal payments between the two parties impossible. Furthermore, because the two came as a package deal, the driver contract was contingent on sponsorship money. Haas terminated its sponsorship with Uralkali at the same time it fired Mazepin. Mazepin revealed in June that he was suing Haas for what he calls a salary debt owed to him in the form of being paid up to the time of his contract termination, as well as some severance pay. At the termination of the contract, Haas had a salary debt to me for this year, he said shortly after the news, and they still haven't paid it. It seems to me that the employer should at least compensate the salary until the moment of termination and probably pay some severance pay. And when the whole world kicks you somewhere, that's probably wrong. But that's just my opinion. I'm just talking about the fact that the contractual obligations were not met. That's one. You also have to understand that we had two independent contracts, and the breakdown of the agreement with the title sponsor had no direct impact on my future in the team. That is, they made two separate decisions. I have not seen my money, that's why we are going to court. This is my personal story. Documents have already been filed with the court. Mazepin explained where the process was at after winning the class he was competing in at the Silky Way Rally, his first motorsport event since his axing. My personal lawsuits are in full swing. We have already selected the jurisdiction, the place where the contract was signed, in Switzerland. The lawyers have filled out all the paperwork and the lawsuit has been filed for review. If I'm summoned, I will take part, but I don't think that will happen. Although Mazepin, who raced for Haas for only one season, is still hoping to return to F1, that prospect is becoming increasingly unlikely. When asked about his reaction to being described only as a former Formula One driver, he said, "Not offended. I believe we must call things by their proper names. There is a reason why there are only 20 places and 10 teams in Formula One. I don't have a valid contract. When I crossed the line in 2022, I had one. And it's generally an amazing situation in the history of the series when you have a contract until the new year and then you lose it. But I'm all for honesty. I'm used to calling things by their proper names. I focus on the fact that there are great opportunities to get a contract in Formula One in the future. I'm 23 years old. If you look at my results in Formula 3 and Formula 2, with time and experience, I make a much bigger jump than my rivals. And based on that experience, I look forward to tomorrow with confidence." Of course, Mazepin was not the only one who brought those events back into light, with Haas team principal Guenther Steiner providing his perspective in an interview with The Telegraph. Reflecting on the team's actions a few months later, Steiner revealed that despite the lack of time to weigh their options, the decision to let Mazepin and Uralkali go had been simple. "I was having breakfast with Gene when we both learned of the invasion, so we knew what we needed to do, and I knew that I had his backing. The decision we had to make was defined by itself. We needed to make a change. We couldn't go on with this, what had happened with the invasion. Axing Uralkali was a significant decision for a Haas team that operates on a relatively small budget, as it meant losing their primary sponsor. Despite losing that important revenue stream, Steiner insists the decision was the right one, and there was a very simple reason why. It's no secret that Mazepin and Steiner's relationship was strained at best. Mazepin's first and only Formula One season proved to be a challenging one. Mazepin and teammate Mick Schumacher frequently found themselves at the back of the field due to Haas's decision not to develop their 2021 car in order to focus on the new regulations coming into the sport in 2022. Mazepin's year, however, was particularly exciting, but for all the wrong reasons. It was obvious from the first Grand Prix that the Russian driver would spend more time in the gravel trap than anyone else on the grid. Then there were the run-ins with his peers, with others frequently complaining over the radio about Mazepin's risky maneuvers. But while butting heads with his competitors is part of the sport, Mazepin wasn't particularly popular at Haas either, with the Russian driver frequently being both uncooperative and rude to the team staff. All of this culminated in Mazepin's now famous scolding from Steiner, as revealed by Netflix's Drive to Survive. Mazepin had been a divisive figure in Formula 1 since his debut, but it only jumped from one scandal to the next during his days in the sport. And by the time he left, it was not a stretch to say that he was regarded as the most hated driver on the grid. For the time being, there was little news about what is going on behind the scenes in the connection with the lawsuit, but as lawsuits go, we expect it to be a while before more information is released. For Haas, however, regardless of the outcome, the team is probably more pleased than they let on. Kevin Magnussen, who previously drove for the team between 2017 and 2020, took over Mazepin's seat, and it has been a large positive for the outfit. In the Dane, Mick Schumacher benefits from a much more seasoned racer from whom he can learn, and Steiner stated as much when assessing the German's progress this season. In the reference to the benefit Magnussen brings to Schumacher's development, the Haas boss stated that Schumacher is fortunate to now have a more appropriate teammate. It's the best thing that could have happened to him. He was very happy when I told him that we had signed Kevin because Kevin is very collaborative. He looks after him, he tries to help him when he can, and he's not trying to fight him. Mick is very lucky to have a teammate like Kevin. He can learn from him as a person, as a driver, and by looking at his data. Mick is in a much better spot than last year. Having Kevin here, there is no negative, except having Kevin here. Magnussen's best performance this year came in the season opener in Bahrain, where he finished a miraculous 5th place. And because the Danishman has impressed his Haas bosses with his performance, Haas has confirmed that he will remain on the team in 2023 as well. All things considered, Magnussen's return to the sport is a miracle given the improbability of it and the performance he's been able to put on. Is it possible that the same miracle will occur for Nikita Mazepin? Probably not, but the Russians certainly believe so. Both Nikita and his father Dmitry have been sanctioned by the EU, including a travel ban that prevents them from visiting any country in the Union, but the ex-Haas driver remains confident of returning to Formula 1. Of course, I can't say what will happen tomorrow, but all my life I've wanted to get into Formula 1. I've already got out there, but the appetite comes with eating, and I have no doubts what I could do in a competitive car. I have confidence that in the future it will be possible to return. Therefore, I am at the same weight and have kept myself in good physical shape, so if such a challenge arises, I will be able to take advantage of it. Now that would be something. What do you think? Is it possible? Do you agree with Haas handling the situation, or are you disappointed that Nikita Mazepin was let go in this manner? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. It helps us out a lot.